The evening air carried a slight chill as Andre Mitchell drove home from his warehouse job, his shoulders aching from the 10-hour shift. The digital clock on his dashboard read 11:43 p.m. He was looking forward to a hot shower and falling into bed. The roads were mostly empty in this part of town. Just the occasional car passing by under the yellow glow of streetlights. Andre adjusted the position of his leg, carefully moving it with his hand to ease the stiffness that had built up during his shift. The childhood accident that had left him with partial mobility in his right leg was always worse after standing all day. His custom walking cane rested in the passenger seat within easy reach. The flash of blue and red lights in his rearview mirror made Andre's heart sink. He checked his speed. He was going just under the limit. Maybe a taillight was out? He signaled and pulled over to the curb, then reached for his wallet in the back pocket of his jeans. Years of experience as a black man in America had taught him the drill. License and registration ready, hands visible, movements slow and deliberate. 2 officers approached his car, one on each side. The taller one, whose badge read Officer Peterson, shined a flashlight through the driver's window. "License and registration," Peterson said. His voice flat and emotionless. "Yes, sir," Andre replied, keeping his voice steady and respectful. "My registration is in the glove compartment." "I'm going to reach for it now." The officer nodded and Andre carefully leaned over to open the glove box. His leg protested at the movement, sending a sharp pain up his thigh. He winced but managed to retrieve the document. "Sir, have you been drinking tonight?" Peterson asked, studying Andre's face in the beam of the flashlight. "No, sir. I just finished my shift at the warehouse. I'm heading home. Step out of the vehicle, please." Andre's stomach tightened with anxiety. "Officer, may I ask why? I haven't been drinking." "Step out of the vehicle now," Peterson repeated, his tone hardening. "I will, sir, but I need to let you know that I have a mobility impairment. I need my cane to walk properly." Andre gestured toward the passenger seat where his walking cane lay. The second officer, a stockier man with Ramirez on his badge, circled around to the passenger side, his hand resting on his holster. "I'm going to reach for my cane," Andre explained, moving his hand slowly toward the passenger seat. "Hands where I can see them." Peterson suddenly barked. Andre froze, his hands returning to the steering wheel. "Sir, I can't walk properly without my cane. I have a... Out of the car. Now." Peterson's voice left no room for argument. Andre sighed, knowing this was going to be difficult. "Yes, sir." He opened the door slowly and began the laborious process of getting out without his cane. His right leg couldn't bear his full weight, making his movements awkward and slow. "Move it!" Ramirez shouted from the passenger side. "I'm trying, sir. Like I said, I have a disability," Andre explained again, gripping the doorframe for support as he struggled to stand. Peterson grabbed Andre's arm and yanked him forward. Unprepared for the sudden movement, Andre lost his balance. His weak leg buckled beneath him, and he instinctively reached out to grab something, anything to stop his fall. "He's resisting," Peterson shouted, and in an instant both officers were on him. Andre felt himself being pushed face down onto the cold asphalt. "I'm not resisting." "I have a disability?" "I can't." His words were cut off as his cheek scraped against the rough ground. "Stop fighting," Ramirez yelled, though Andre wasn't fighting at all. He was simply trying to explain, trying to protect his bad leg from being wrenched into a painful position. "Please, my leg," Andre gasped as one of the officers pressed a knee into his back, making it hard to breathe. Across the street, a young woman named Taylor had stepped out of the corner store when she heard the commotion. Seeing what was happening, she pulled out her phone and began recording. "He's telling you he's disabled," she called out, her voice shaking with anger and fear. "Why are you doing this?" The officers ignored her. Peterson was now attempting to handcuff Andre, who was still trying to protect his leg from further injury. "Stop resisting," Peterson shouted again. "I'm not!" Andre cried out, his voice strained. "I physically can't move like that. Please listen." By now, a small crowd had gathered. A middle-aged couple had pulled their car over. The man stepped out, his hands raised in a non-threatening gesture. "Officers, he's clearly trying to tell you something," the man called out cautiously. Peterson glanced up, noticing for the first time that they had an audience. Several people had their phones out, recording the incident. "Stay back. Police business," he shouted. Andre's cane had fallen out of the car during the struggle and lay on the ground just a few feet away. Please, he gasped. My cane. I need my cane to stand properly. Ramirez noticed the cane for the first time. Something flickered across his face. Doubt, perhaps, or the first inkling that they might have misjudged the situation. But Peterson was already committed to the course of action. Stop talking and put your hands behind your back. Andre, realizing that further explanation was futile, finally stopped trying to protect his leg and allowed his arms to be pulled behind his back. The handcuffs clicked into place, cold metal against his skin. My wallet has a medical card, Andre said, his voice quieter now, resigned. It explains my condition. Peterson roughly pulled Andre to his feet, ignoring his cry of pain as weight was forced onto his weak leg. Without his cane, Andre couldn't balance properly. He swayed dangerously, then fell again, unable to catch himself with his hands cuffed behind his back. Get up, Peterson demanded. I can't without my cane, Andre replied, fighting to keep his voice calm despite the pain and humiliation. Please, just check my wallet. There's a medical— Enough! Peterson cut him off. Together with Ramirez, they hauled Andre up and half-dragged him toward their patrol car, his feet scrambling for purchase, his right leg nearly useless. Taylor, still recording, had moved closer. What's the charge? She demanded. What did he do? Ma'am, step back, Ramirez warned. This isn't right, said another bystander, an elderly man who had emerged from a nearby apartment building. The man said he's disabled. Why won't you listen? Andre was now leaning against the police car, breathing heavily, sweat beading on his forehead despite the cool night air. The pain in his leg had intensified, and he could feel blood trickling down his face from where his cheek had scraped against the asphalt. Officers, please, he tried once more, his voice steady despite everything. My name is Andre Mitchell. I work at the Wilson Distribution Center. I was just driving home. I have a partial paralysis in my right leg from a childhood accident. My medical card is in my wallet. Please check it. Something in his dignified, calm tone finally seemed to reach Ramirez. The officer hesitated, then reached for the wallet that was still visible in Andre's back pocket. But Peterson wasn't having it. He was driving erratically. Possible DUI? I wasn't, Andre protested. And I haven't had a drink in years. The crowd had grown larger. Someone shouted, This is being recorded. Badge numbers visible. Peterson's face hardened. He opened the back door of the patrol car. Get in, he ordered Andre. Without his cane and with his hands cuffed behind him, Andre couldn't manage the step up into the vehicle. He tried, his face contorting with the effort, but his bad leg simply wouldn't cooperate. Peterson's patience snapped. He grabbed Andre by the collar and shoved him roughly into the car. Andre's head hit the doorframe with a sickening thud, and he cried out in pain. Hey! Several voices shouted from the crowd simultaneously. Taylor stepped forward, her phone still recording. I've got all of this on video, she said, her voice shaking but determined. All of it, including his badge number. Ramirez looked increasingly uncomfortable. He turned to his partner. Pete, maybe we should— Do your job. Peterson snapped at him, then slammed the car door shut with Andre inside. In the back seat, Andre leaned his head against the window, trying to steady his breathing. His cheek stung, his leg throbbed, and a new pain was blooming where his head had hit the doorframe. But worse than the physical pain was the humiliation, the helplessness, the bitter knowledge that no matter how calmly he had tried to explain, no matter how carefully he had complied, it hadn't mattered. Through the window he could see Taylor still recording, could see the concern and outrage on the faces of the bystanders. Something stirred in his chest. Not hope exactly, but a grim determination. This time there were witnesses. This time there was video. This time maybe the truth would come out. As the patrol car pulled away from the curb, Andre closed his eyes. The night that had started with simple plans for a shower and bed had turned into something much darker. But he was still breathing, still thinking, still determined to see justice done. What he didn't know yet was that Taylor's video would be uploaded within the hour, that by morning it would have thousands of views, that his sister would see it while drinking her morning coffee and would drop everything to find him. He didn't know that this night, painful as it was, would eventually lead to consequences for those who had refused to listen. For now, all he knew was the pain in his body and the resolve in his heart. Whatever came next, he would face it with the same dignity he had shown tonight. It was all he had left at this moment, but sometimes dignity is enough to begin with. Light filtered through the thin hospital curtains. casting pale stripes across Andre's face as he slowly opened his eyes. For a moment he was disoriented, the unfamiliar ceiling and antiseptic smell confusing him. Then the pain hit, a deep ache in his leg, a sharp sting on his cheek, and a throbbing at his temple. And the memories of the night before came flooding back. He tried to sit up but winced as pain shot through his ribs. A nurse noticed he was awake and approached his bed. "Try not to move too much," she advised gently. "You've got some bruised ribs along with everything else." Andre nodded, letting his head fall back against the pillow. "How long have I been here?" "Since about 1 a.m. It's just past 9 now." She checked his IV and made a note on her tablet. "Your sister's been here since about 6. She just stepped out to make some calls. She'll be back any minute." As if on cue, the door opened and Denise rushed in. At the sight of her brother in the hospital bed, her face crumpled momentarily before she composed herself. "Andre," she breathed, hurrying to his side. "Thank God you're awake." Denise worked as a paralegal at a small law firm downtown. She was 5 years younger than Andre, but had always been his protector in a way, especially after his accident. Now she looked at him with a mixture of relief and fury. "I saw the video," she said, pulling a chair close to his bed and taking his hand. "It's everywhere online." Andre closed his eyes briefly. "So people saw." "Yes. Taylor, the woman who recorded it, posted it last night and it's already been shared thousands of times." Denise squeezed his hand. "Andre, this is wrong, so wrong. But we're not letting them get away with it this time." Andre looked at his sister's determined face. "What did they charge me with?" "Resisting arrest and assaulting an officer," Denise replied, her voice tight with anger. "Absolute garbage. The video clearly shows you weren't resisting. You were just unable to comply the way they wanted because of your leg." "Has a doctor seen you yet?" she asked, changing the subject when she noticed how the news had made Andre's face fall. "Yeah, earlier. They did some x-rays. No broken bones, but they want to keep me for observation because of the hit to my head." The door opened again and a doctor entered, clipboard in hand. "Mr. Mitchell?" "I'm Dr. Patel. How are you feeling?" "Like I got tackled by cops for no reason," Andre replied dryly. Dr. Patel's expression was sympathetic. "I've reviewed your x-rays. As I told you earlier, no fractures, but you have significant bruising on your ribs and back. The cut on your cheek needed 4 stitches and you have a mild concussion. We'll need to monitor that." "What about his leg?" Denise asked. "The pre-existing condition?" Dr. Patel looked at his notes. "No new damage to the leg itself, but the muscle strain from the incident will likely cause increased pain and mobility issues for a while. Physical therapy would be beneficial once the acute injuries heal." After the doctor left, Andre and Denise sat in silence for a moment. "The police report says you were combative," Denise finally said, pulling out her phone to show him an email. "I had Jack from the office request it first thing this morning. They're claiming you resisted arrest and tried to strike Officer Peterson." Andre shook his head in disbelief. "That's a lie. You saw the video." "I know. And that's exactly why Taylor's video is so important. It completely contradicts their report." Denise's phone buzzed with a notification. She glanced at it and her eyes widened. "Andre, the video just got picked up by the local news. They want to interview Taylor." "This is going to get big, isn't it?" Andre said, a mix of hope and apprehension in his voice. "It already is." Denise showed him the comments under the video. Hundreds of people expressing outrage, calling for the officers to be fired, demanding justice. "And you've got me. I've already talked to my boss. The firm is willing to represent you pro bono." A knock at the door interrupted them. A nurse poked her head in. "Mr. Mitchell?" "There's someone here to see you. Says she's the one who recorded the incident last night." Taylor entered hesitantly, looking different in daylight than she had under the streetlights. She was younger than Andre had realized, probably in her early 20s, with her hair pulled back in a neat ponytail. "I hope it's okay that I came," she said. "I saw which hospital they took you to and I wanted to check if you were all right." "It's more than okay." Denise stood and extended her hand. "I'm Denise, Andre's sister. Thank you for what you did last night." Taylor shook her hand, then turned to Andre. "I'm so sorry about what happened to you. It was horrible." "Your video might make all the difference," Andre said. "Thank you for being brave enough to record it." "It wasn't brave. It was just right." Taylor shifted uncomfortably. "The news wants to interview me about it. I wanted to make sure that was okay with you before I said yes." Andre nodded. "Absolutely. The truth needs to get out there. As they were talking, Andre's phone, which Denise had retrieved from the property bag the hospital had given her, lit up with a notification. Denise picked it up. "It's your boss," she said, reading the message. He saw the news. "Says to take all the time you need and your job is secure." Andre felt a wave of relief. At least he wouldn't have to worry about losing his job on top of everything else. The door opened again, this time revealing two people Andre didn't recognize. A tall black woman in a crisp suit and a younger man carrying a briefcase. "Mr. Mitchell?" the woman said. "My name is Victoria Washington. I'm a civil rights attorney. This is my associate, Nathan Chen. We'd like to talk to you about what happened last night if you're feeling up to it." Denise stood protectively. "How did you find out he was here?" "The video," Victoria replied simply. "Like everyone else. But unlike everyone else, I've been fighting cases like this for 15 years. And I'd like to help you fight yours if you'll let me." Andre and Denise exchanged glances. "My firm is already," Denise began. "With all due respect," Victoria interrupted gently, "your firm does family law and small business disputes. This is going to be a different kind of battle. The department is already circling the wagons. They've released a statement saying the video doesn't show the full context and that they're standing by their officer's account." "Already?" Andre asked, surprised. Nathan nodded, pulling out a tablet to show them. "Released about 20 minutes ago. They're claiming the body cameras will vindicate the officers, but curiously, they haven't released that footage yet." "They're buying time," Victoria said, "probably hoping this blows over. But we're not going to let that happen, are we?" There was a steely determination in her voice that made Andre feel, for the first time since the incident, that maybe something good could come from all this pain. "Internal Affairs has opened an investigation," Nathan added, "but they're dragging their feet. They haven't even interviewed Taylor yet, despite the fact that she's the primary witness." Taylor looked surprised. "No one from the police has contacted me at all." "They will," Victoria assured her. "And when they do, you should have representation present. I can arrange that for you, free of charge." Another knock at the door. This time it was a nurse looking apologetic. "I'm sorry, but there are two detectives here. They say they need to speak with Mr. Mitchell." Andre felt a knot form in his stomach. Denise squeezed his hand reassuringly. "We'll stay if you want us to," Victoria offered. Andre nodded gratefully. "Please." The detectives entered, a middle-aged white man with a receding hairline and a younger Latino woman. They introduced themselves as Detectives Harding and Gomez from Internal Affairs. "We'd like to ask Mr. Mitchell some questions about last night's incident," Harding said, eyeing the room full of people with obvious displeasure. "My client is happy to answer your questions," Victoria said smoothly, stepping forward. "I'm Victoria Washington, Mr. Mitchell's attorney." Harding's expression soured further. "That was fast." "Justice often isn't," Victoria replied evenly. "But in this case, we're hoping to expedite things." The questioning was tense. The detectives seemed more interested in Andre's actions prior to the stop than in the officer's behavior afterward. They asked repeatedly if he'd been drinking, if he'd made any sudden movements, if he'd said anything that could have been construed as threatening. Through it all, Andre remained calm, recounting the events exactly as they had happened. Yes, he had informed the officers multiple times about his disability. No, he had not been drinking. No, he had not resisted arrest. He had simply been physically unable to comply with their demands without his cane. When Harding suggested that Andre might have appeared to be reaching for something when he mentioned his cane, Victoria cut in. "Detective, the video clearly shows my client explaining about his disability and his cane. It also clearly shows him being thrown to the ground despite his cooperation. Are you suggesting that Officers Peterson and Ramirez were justified in their actions?" Harding bristled. "I'm not suggesting anything. I'm investigating. Then perhaps you should also be investigating why the official police report contradicts video evidence," Victoria said coolly, "and why the department issued a statement supporting the officers before your investigation was complete." After the detectives left, the room was quiet for a moment. Then Nathan's phone buzzed. "The video just hit national news," he said, looking up from the screen. "And there's more. Someone from across the street had a security camera. It caught the whole thing from a different angle. It's being sent to the news stations now." Andre closed his eyes, feeling overwhelmed. Just yesterday, he had been an ordinary man going about his life. Now he was at the center of a story that was spreading across the country. What happens next? He asked quietly. Victoria sat on the edge of his bed. Next we fight. For you. And for everyone this has happened to without a camera present. The truth is on our side, Andre, and this time, it might just be enough to win. As the afternoon sun slanted through the window, casting long shadows across the hospital room, Andre looked at the faces surrounding him. His sister, his attorneys, and Taylor, a stranger who had chosen to stand up for what was right. For the first time since being thrown to the ground the night before, he felt something close to hope. The road ahead would be difficult. The system was designed to protect its own. But with the truth captured on video and these people by his side, maybe, just maybe, justice was possible. 2 weeks had passed since the night of the incident. Andre sat in Victoria's office, his cane propped against the chair beside him. The cuts on his face had begun to heal, but the dark circles under his eyes spoke of sleepless nights and constant stress. Victoria spread several documents across her desk. "The department is digging in their heels," she said, tapping a press statement released that morning. "They're still claiming the body cameras will show the full story, but they're refusing to release the footage, citing the ongoing investigation." "That's convenient," Denise said from her seat next to Andre. She had taken time off from her job to help with her brother's case, using her paralegal skills to assist Victoria and Nathan. "Very," Victoria agreed. "But we've made progress. We've identified 5 previous complaints against Officer Peterson for excessive force. 3 of them involved black men, and 1 specifically mentioned the officer ignoring a medical condition." Andre leaned forward. "What happened with those complaints?" "All dismissed," Nathan said, entering the office with a stack of papers. "Internal investigations found insufficient evidence in each case." He put the papers down and adjusted his glasses. "But none of those cases had video evidence like we do." Victoria nodded. "That's our advantage. The first video from Taylor has over 2 million views now. The security camera footage isn't as clear, but it confirms your account from a different angle. And we've located 2 more witnesses who are willing to give statements." Andre rubbed his forehead. The last 2 weeks had been a whirlwind. His phone hadn't stopped ringing. Journalists wanting interviews, well-wishers offering support, and unfortunately, anonymous callers leaving threatening messages. He'd had to change his number twice. "What about the body camera footage?" he asked. "Can we force them to release it?" "We're working on it," Victoria assured him. "I've filed a formal request under public records law. If they refuse, we'll go to court. They can stall, but they can't hide it forever." Nathan's phone buzzed. He glanced at it and his eyebrows shot up. "You're going to want to see this," he said, handing the phone to Victoria. She read the screen, then looked up at Andre and Denise. "There's a new development," she said carefully. "A police report just surfaced from 2 years ago. Officer Ramirez reported Peterson for using excessive force on a suspect, but the complaint was buried. Apparently Ramirez was pressured to withdraw it." Andre sat straighter. "So Ramirez knew Peterson had a history of this." "And did nothing to stop it this time," Denise added bitterly. "Until now, perhaps," Victoria said. "This report was leaked to the press. Someone inside the department wants this information out there." "You think it was Ramirez?" Andre asked. Victoria shrugged. "Possibly." He looked uncomfortable in the video. Maybe his conscience is finally catching up with him. Outside Victoria's office, protesters had gathered daily since the video went viral. What had started as a small group of local activists had grown into a movement. Hundreds of people now stood outside the police headquarters each day, holding signs demanding justice for Andre and accountability for the officers involved. Community organizations had rallied around Andre's case. The local disability rights group had issued a powerful statement about the police department's failure to properly train officers in recognizing and accommodating disabilities. Civil rights organizations had highlighted how Andre's experience reflected broader patterns of racial bias in policing. "The community's support has been incredible," Nathan said, scrolling through more news updates on his phone. "The hashtag Justice for Andre is trending nationally." Andre nodded, feeling a complicated mix of gratitude and discomfort. He had never wanted to become the face of a movement. He had just wanted to drive home from work without being assaulted by the people who were supposed to protect him. "What about my job?" he asked, changing the subject. "My doctor hasn't cleared me to go back yet, and I'm worried about..." Your employer has been remarkably supportive, Victoria reminded him. They've assured us your position is secure, and they're treating this as medical leave. And the fundraiser has already covered your medical expenses, Denise added. A group of community members had organized an online fundraiser that had quickly exceeded its goal, providing financial support while Andre recovered. I know, Andre sighed. I'm grateful. It's just a lot. Victoria's assistant knocked on the door. Victoria, Chief Williams is making a statement on TV right now. Victoria grabbed the remote and turned on the small television mounted in the corner of her office. Chief Williams, a stern-faced man in his 50s, stood behind a podium, flanked by other department officials. The department takes these allegations very seriously, he was saying. We are committed to a thorough and impartial investigation. However, we ask the public to reserve judgment until all the facts are known. A partial video circulating on social media does not tell the whole story. Still pushing that line? Nathan muttered. Chief Williams continued. Our officers make split-second decisions in potentially dangerous situations. Officer Peterson and Officer Ramirez have exemplary records of service to this community, and we stand behind them as the investigation proceeds. Victoria scoffed. Exemplary? We have 5 excessive force complaints on Peterson, and now we know Ramirez previously reported him for the same behavior. The press conference continued with reporters shouting questions. One managed to break through. Chief Williams, why hasn't the body camera footage been released if it supposedly supports the officer's account? The chief's expression tightened. As I've stated, this is an ongoing investigation. Releasing the footage now could compromise that process. Another reporter. Sources within the department claim Officer Ramirez filed a report against Officer Peterson 2 years ago for excessive force. Can you comment on that? The chief's face flushed. I'm not aware of any such report. Next question. Victoria turned down the volume. He's lying. That report exists, and now he's been caught in the lie on national television. What does that mean for our case? Andre asked. It means the cracks are starting to show, Victoria replied with a smile. When they start lying publicly, it's because they're worried. Later that afternoon, Andre attended his physical therapy session. His leg had always required maintenance and care, but the incident had set him back considerably. The physical therapist, a kind woman named Lynn, worked with him patiently as he struggled through the exercises. You're doing better today, she encouraged as Andre completed a set of movements designed to strengthen his leg. Doesn't feel like it, he grimaced, sweat beading on his forehead from the effort. Healing isn't linear, Lynn reminded him. Some days are better than others. The important thing is you keep showing up. Andre nodded, thinking how her words applied to more than just his physical recovery. As he was leaving the physical therapy center, a young officer in uniform approached him in the parking lot. Andre tensed immediately, his heart rate spiking. Mr. Mitchell? The officer said hesitantly. I'm Officer Rivera. I was there that night. I was in the second patrol car that arrived after you were already in custody. Andre gripped his cane tighter. Unsure what to expect, I just wanted to say. Rivera looked around nervously, then lowered her voice. What happened to you was wrong. And not everyone on the force stands with Peterson and Ramirez. Before Andre could respond, Rivera walked away quickly, leaving him stunned in the parking lot. When Andre recounted this interaction to Victoria the next day, her eyes lit up. This could be huge, she said. An officer willing to break ranks could change everything. She seemed scared, Andre noted. I don't know if she'd actually speak out publicly. The blue wall of silence is powerful, Victoria acknowledged. Officers who speak out against their colleagues often face severe backlash. But even her approaching you is significant. That afternoon, they received news that turned the case on its head. The body camera footage, which the department had been withholding, had been leaked to the press. Victoria, Nathan, Andre, and Denise gathered around Victoria's computer to watch it. The footage was damning. It clearly showed Andre explaining his disability multiple times. It showed his cane visible in the passenger seat. Most importantly, it showed Officer Peterson ignoring these explanations and escalating the situation unnecessarily. This contradicts their report completely, Nathan said, pausing the video at a key moment. They claimed you never mentioned your disability until after you were in custody. The question is, who leaked it? Denise wondered. Could be anyone with access, Victoria said. But my money's on either Ramirez or Rivera. Someone inside that department has a conscience. The leaked footage aired on the evening news. By morning, the public outcry had reached new heights. Protesters surrounded the police headquarters, their numbers now in the thousands. City council members began issuing statements calling for accountability. The mayor announced a special meeting to address the situation. Andre watched it all unfold from Victoria's office, feeling both vindicated and overwhelmed. The truth was finally coming to light, but the journey was far from over. "What happens now?" he asked Victoria as they watched live coverage of the protests. "Now," she said with determination, "we push harder. The department is on the defensive. They've been caught in lies. The public is outraged. This is when we demand real change. Not just for you, but for everyone who suffered the same injustice without a camera present." Andre nodded, thinking of Officer Rivera's words in the parking lot. Not everyone stood with Peterson and Ramirez. There were good people within the system too. People who wanted change just as much as those protesting outside. For the first time since that night when he was pulled over for simply driving while black and disabled, Andre felt something more powerful than hope. He felt the certainty that the truth would prevail. The road ahead would still be difficult, but he was no longer walking it alone. The police station hummed with tension as Officer Rivera sat in the empty break room, staring at her untouched coffee. 3 weeks had passed since she'd approached Andre in the parking lot, and the leaked body camera footage had thrown the department into chaos. Everyone was looking for someone to blame, and the suspicion was thick in the air. Her phone buzzed with a text from her partner. "Chief wants to see you, now." Rivera's stomach tightened. Taking a deep breath, she dumped her cold coffee in the sink and headed toward the chief's office, passing groups of officers who fell silent as she walked by. She'd noticed this happening more and more lately. The whispers, the sideways glances, the sudden changes in conversation when she entered a room. Chief Williams was on the phone when she arrived, his face flushed with anger. He gestured for her to sit while he finished his call. "Well, get them to take it down," he barked into the receiver. "That footage wasn't authorized for release." He slammed the phone down and fixed Rivera with a hard stare. "Officer Rivera, thank you for coming." "You wanted to see me, sir?" The chief leaned back in his chair, studying her. "There's been a lot of speculation about who leaked that body cam footage." "Any thoughts on that?" Rivera kept her expression neutral. "No, sir. I don't know who would have done that, really." The chief picked up a folder from his desk and opened it. "Because IT tells me you accessed the footage file 2 days before it was leaked." Rivera's heart pounded, but she kept her voice steady. "Yes, sir. I was writing my witness statement for the internal investigation. I wanted to make sure my account was accurate." "And did you make a copy of that footage?" "No, sir." The chief studied her face for a long moment. "Officer Rivera, let me be clear. This department stands together, always. What happened with Mitchell was unfortunate, but second-guessing your fellow officers is not how we operate, especially not in public." "With all due respect, sir," Rivera said carefully, "what happened to Mr. Mitchell wasn't just unfortunate. It was wrong." The chief's eyes narrowed. "That's not for you to decide." "I saw what happened," Rivera insisted, a surge of courage pushing her forward. "The body cam footage confirms it. Peterson and Ramirez used excessive force on a disabled man who was trying to explain his condition." Officer Peterson made a split-second decision based on what he perceived as non-compliance, the chief countered. "He ignored clear communication from Mr. Mitchell about his disability," Rivera said. "That's not what we're trained to do." The chief's expression hardened. "I'm going to pretend this conversation never happened, Rivera, for your sake. But I'm watching you. One more step out of line, and you'll be on desk duty until retirement. Are we clear?" Rivera felt a chill run through her. "Yes, sir." "Good." Dismissed. Outside the chief's office, Rivera leaned against the wall, trying to steady her breathing. What she was considering could end her career. But staying silent felt increasingly impossible. Across town, Victoria's office had become the unofficial headquarters for Andre's case. The walls were covered with timelines, documents, and photographs. Andre sat with Denise, Victoria, and Nathan, discussing their next steps. "The department has offered a settlement," Victoria announced. Sliding a document across the table, Andre picked it up skeptically. "How much?" "200,000, Victoria replied, "with a non-disclosure agreement. You'd be legally barred from discussing the case publicly." Andre snorted and put the paper down. They want my silence. Exactly, Victoria said. This isn't about making things right. It's about making the problem, meaning you, go away. Are we turning it down? Denise asked, though she already knew the answer. Absolutely, Andre said firmly. This isn't just about me anymore. Victoria smiled. That's what I told them you'd say. Their lawyer wasn't happy. What's our counter? Nathan asked. We're not making one, Victoria said. We're going to court. The settlement offer means they're scared. The leaked footage, the press coverage, the protest, it's all adding up to a public relations nightmare for them. Nathan's phone rang. He stepped out to take the call, then rushed back in moments later, his eyes wide. You're not going to believe this, he said, excitement in his voice. That was my contact at Channel 8. Officer Ramirez just gave them a statement confirming Andre's version of events. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. He broke ranks? Denise finally asked, incredulous. Completely, Nathan confirmed. Said he's been struggling with his conscience since that night. He admitted that Peterson has a history of using excessive force, especially with minorities, and that the department has covered it up repeatedly. Victoria was already grabbing her laptop. This changes everything. If Ramirez is willing to testify, he is, Nathan said. He says he's done being part of the problem. Andre sat back, stunned. Why now? Why not that night when it could have prevented all this? Fear is powerful, Victoria said gently. The police culture punishes officers who speak out against their own. But once the first crack appears, the dam starts to break, Denise finished. That evening, Officer Ramirez's statement aired on the evening news. He appeared on camera, still in uniform, his face solemn as he described not only what happened to Andre, but a pattern of similar incidents involving Officer Peterson. I should have spoken up sooner, he admitted, his voice heavy with regret. I've been complicit in a system that protects the wrong people. What happened to Mr. Mitchell was inexcusable, and it wasn't an isolated incident. The fallout was immediate. The police union issued a statement condemning Ramirez for breaking the trust of his fellow officers. Chief Williams held an emergency press conference, attempting to damage control by announcing that both Peterson and Ramirez would be placed on administrative leave pending the investigation. Too little, too late, Denise commented as they watched the chief's strained face on TV. The next morning, Andre received a call from an unknown number. Cautiously, he answered. Mr. Mitchell, this is Officer Rivera. We met briefly outside your physical therapy. Andre put the phone on speaker so Victoria and Denise could hear. Yes, I remember. I need to talk to you and your lawyer, Rivera said, her voice tense. In person. Today, if possible. 2 hours later, Rivera sat in Victoria's office, visibly nervous but determined. I've been debating this for weeks, she began, but after seeing Ramirez come forward, I can't stay silent anymore. What do you want to tell us? Victoria asked gently. Rivera took a deep breath. The night of the incident, I arrived after Mr. Mitchell was already in custody. But I heard him explaining about his disability to the booking officer, and I saw his medical card. I mentioned it to Peterson later, and he told me to leave it out of my report. And did you? Victoria asked. Rivera nodded, shame evident on her face. Yes, I did what I was told. But that's not all. She pulled out a flash drive from her pocket and placed it on the table. This is the footage from my body camera that night. It includes a conversation between Peterson and Ramirez where Peterson says, and I quote, "Just stick to the story. These people always resist. No one will question it." Andre stared at the flash drive, then at Rivera. Why are you doing this now? Because it's right, Rivera said simply. And because you're not the first. There have been others. The department buries the complaints, falsifies reports, and nothing changes. I became a cop to help people, not to cover up abuse. Victoria picked up the flash drive. You realize what this means for your career? Rivera gave a sad smile. Yes, but I can't look at myself in the mirror anymore if I don't speak up. That afternoon, the second body camera footage was released to the media. The reaction was explosive. Coming on the heels of Ramirez's statement, Rivera's footage provided irrefutable evidence of a deliberate cover-up. Public outrage reached new heights. The mayor called an emergency meeting with the city council. The FBI announced they would be opening a civil rights investigation into the department's practices. Officer Peterson, realizing the walls were closing in, held a hasty press conference of his own. attempting to shift blame to department policies and inadequate training. "I was never properly trained to handle individuals with disabilities," he claimed, his previous arrogance replaced by defensive panic. "The department failed to provide us with the tools we needed." The police chief, facing mounting pressure, announced that an independent review board would be established to investigate all past complaints against the officers involved. That evening, as Andre sat with Denise in her apartment watching the continuing coverage, his phone rang. It was Victoria. "Turn on Channel 5 now," she said without preamble. Andre switched channels to see a breaking news banner. Police Department releases statement. Officers Peterson and Ramirez terminated effective immediately. "They fired them?" Andre asked, disbelieving. "The pressure was too great," Victoria explained. "With both Ramirez and Rivera speaking out, plus the footage, they had no choice. But this is just the beginning. The criminal investigation is still ongoing and our civil suit will proceed." After hanging up, Andre sat in silence for a long moment. Denise watched him, concerned. "You okay?" she asked gently. "I don't know," Andre admitted. "I should feel happy, I guess. Vindicated, but mostly I just feel tired." Denise took his hand. "This was never just about getting those 2 officers fired. It's about changing a system that allowed this to happen in the first place." Andre nodded. "And about making sure it doesn't happen to someone else." His phone buzzed with a text from Taylor. "Just saw the news. Justice is happening because you refused to back down. So proud to know you." Messages poured in from friends, supporters, and strangers who had been following his case. The community organizations that had rallied around him were planning a gathering to celebrate this first victory, while emphasizing that the fight for true accountability was far from over. As night fell, Andre stood by Denise's window, looking out at the city lights. The 2 officers losing their badges wouldn't erase what happened to him. It wouldn't instantly fix the deeper problems in policing, but it was a start, a crack in a system that had seemed impenetrable just a month ago. "What are you thinking about?" Denise asked, joining him at the window. "Officer Rivera," Andre replied. "She risked everything to do the right thing." "Some people will," Denise said. "Not enough maybe, but some. And sometimes that's all it takes to start changing things." Andre nodded, thinking about the long road still ahead, the criminal case, the civil suit, the push for broader reforms. The truth had cost 2 officers their badges, but the real work was just beginning. 6 months had passed since the night Andre was pulled over. The early morning light filtered through the blinds as he adjusted his tie in the mirror. Today was the day he would face Officer Peterson and Officer Ramirez in court, for the first time since their termination. "You ready for this?" Denise asked, appearing in the doorway of his bedroom. Andre took a deep breath. "As ready as I'll ever be." The criminal trial against the former officers had been a long time coming. After their firing, the district attorney had filed charges: assault, filing false reports, and civil rights violations. Today was the first day of testimony and Andre would be taking the stand. "Victoria called," Denise said, checking her phone. "She'll meet us at the courthouse. There's already a crowd gathering outside." The case had grown beyond anything Andre could have imagined. What began as a viral video had evolved into a movement for police accountability that had swept across the country. Other victims of police misconduct had come forward, inspired by Andre's refusal to be silenced. Policy changes were being discussed in city councils nationwide. "I just want to tell the truth," Andre said, grabbing his cane. "That's all I've ever wanted." The courthouse steps were packed with supporters and media when they arrived. Andre spotted familiar faces from the community organizations that had rallied around him. Taylor was there too, giving him a thumbs up from behind a barricade. Victoria met them at a side entrance, guiding them past the crowd. "The jury selection went well," she told Andre. "The prosecution feels good about the 12 people chosen." Inside the courtroom, Andre saw Peterson and Ramirez for the first time since that night. Peterson sat stiffly beside his attorney, his face a mask of defiance. Ramirez, who had agreed to testify against his former partner in exchange for a reduced sentence, looked pale and nervous at a separate table with his own lawyer. The proceedings began with opening statements. The prosecutor, a no-nonsense woman named District Attorney Powell, laid out the case methodically. "The evidence will show that these officers abused their power, used excessive force against a disabled man, and then deliberately falsified reports to cover up their actions. she told the jury. Mr. Mitchell informed them multiple times about his disability. He attempted to comply with their instructions as best he could. Their response was not just a momentary lapse in judgment, it was a criminal assault followed by a calculated cover-up. Peterson's attorney argued that his client had been made a scapegoat for departmental failures. Officer Peterson was acting according to his training, the lawyer claimed. In a potentially dangerous situation, he made split-second decisions to protect himself and the public. When it was Andre's turn to testify, he walked slowly to the witness stand, conscious of every eye in the courtroom following him. As he was sworn in, he caught sight of Officer Rivera sitting in the back row. She gave him a small nod of encouragement. For nearly 2 hours, Andre recounted the events of that night in painstaking detail. The traffic stop, his attempts to explain about his disability, the assault and the aftermath. The prosecution played the videos and Andre identified himself and the officers in the footage. "How has this incident affected your life, Mr. Mitchell?" DePowell asked. Andre thought carefully before answering. "Physically, I still have pain from the injuries. My mobility, which was already limited, is worse now. I've had to increase my physical therapy sessions." He paused. "But the biggest impact has been mental. I have nightmares. I get anxious when I see police cars. I'm always wondering if the next traffic stop could end the same way." During cross-examination, Peterson's attorney tried to suggest that Andre's movements could have been interpreted as resistance. "Isn't it possible that in the heat of the moment, my client simply misunderstood your intentions?" "I told him multiple times about my disability," Andre replied calmly. "I explained why I needed my cane. He chose not to listen." The trial continued for 2 weeks. Officer Rivera's testimony proved pivotal, as she detailed the conversation she'd overheard between Peterson and Ramirez about sticking to their fabricated story. When Ramirez took the stand, he admitted to the cover-up and confirmed that Peterson had a history of similar behavior that had gone unchecked. "It was common knowledge in the department," Ramirez testified, avoiding Peterson's glare from across the courtroom. "Peterson had a reputation for being aggressive, especially with minorities. But nobody wanted to be the one to speak up." "Including you?" the prosecutor asked. Ramirez nodded, shame evident on his face. "Including me. Until now." Former Chief Williams was also called to testify. Under intense questioning, he was forced to admit that he had been aware of the previous complaints against Peterson, but had taken no meaningful action. "The department prioritized protecting its own over serving the public," Victoria commented to Andre during a recess. "That's what needs to change." On the final day of the trial, both sides presented their closing arguments. The jury deliberated for just 4 hours before returning with a verdict. Guilty on all counts for Peterson, guilty on the lesser charges for Ramirez, in accordance with his plea agreement. As Peterson was led away in handcuffs, he locked eyes with Andre briefly. There was no remorse in his gaze, only anger at being held accountable. Outside the courthouse, Andre stood with Victoria, Denise, and supporters to address the gathered media. "Today, justice was served," Andre said into the cluster of microphones. "But this case was never just about me or these 2 officers. It's about a system that allowed this to happen, that protected the wrong people for too long. True justice means ensuring this doesn't happen to anyone else." In the weeks that followed, changes began to take shape. The city council, under intense public pressure, established an independent oversight board for the police department. The new police chief, appointed after Williams was forced to resign, announced comprehensive reforms to training protocols, particularly regarding interactions with people with disabilities. Andre found himself invited to speak at community meetings, police training sessions, and disability awareness events. Though the spotlight made him uncomfortable, he recognized the importance of sharing his story. 3 months after the trial, Andre sat in a meeting room at City Hall, surrounded by community leaders, police officials, and local government representatives. They were finalizing the details of a new training program that would become mandatory for all officers in the department. "The key is listening," Andre explained to the group. "That night, all I needed was for those officers to listen when I told them about my disability. So much pain could have been avoided." Officer Rivera, who had been promoted to sergeant and placed in charge of implementing the new training protocols, nodded in agreement. "We're changing the culture from the inside," she said. It won't happen overnight, but we're committed to doing better. After the meeting, Rivera approached Andre privately. I wanted you to know that your case has made a real difference. New recruits now learn about what happened to you as part of their training. It's changing how they think about their responsibilities. Andre smiled. That makes everything worth it. On the 1-year anniversary of the incident, Andre stood before a crowd gathered in the city park. What had started as a small community support group had grown into a registered non-profit organization, Voice for Change. With funding from the settlement of his civil lawsuit against the police department, Andre had established the organization to advocate for both police reform and disability rights. 1 year ago, I was just trying to drive home from work, he told the assembled crowd. I never expected to be standing here today, but sometimes life puts you on a path you didn't choose. He looked out at the faces before him. Taylor with her camera, documenting everything as she had that first night. Victoria and Nathan, who had fought tirelessly for justice. Denise, who had never left his side. And dozens of community members who had rallied around his cause. The truth cost those officers their badges, Andre continued. But the truth also set something in motion that's bigger than any one case or any one person. It showed us that change is possible when we stand together and refuse to be silenced. After his speech, as people mingled and shared stories, Andre found a quiet moment alone. He thought about how far he had come from that night on the cold asphalt. The pain and trauma would always be part of him, but they no longer defined him. His phone buzzed with a news alert. The state legislature had just passed a bill requiring enhanced disability awareness training for all law enforcement agencies. The bill was informally known as Andre's Law. As the sun set over the park, casting long shadows across the grass, Andre reflected on the unexpected journey of the past year. He had never wanted to become a symbol or start a movement. He had simply refused to let his truth be buried, and sometimes that was enough to change the world, or at least a small corner of it. Ready to head out? Denise asked, approaching him. Andre nodded, gripping his cane. Ready. Together they walked toward the future they were helping to build, one where truth and accountability weren't just ideals but realities, where badges weren't shields against responsibility, but symbols of a commitment to protect everyone equally, where one person's refusal to be silenced could open the door for countless others to speak their truth. It wasn't a perfect world yet, and the work was far from finished. But it was a start, and sometimes a start was all you needed to create lasting change.